Hi folks, welcome back, Grumbling Homestead. Bit of a different video today. Just recently I was chatting to a nice chap on YouTube called Gary, and his channel is called Bare Roots Bushcraft and Adventures, and I see that he's just reached 1,000 subs, so well done Gary, that's brilliant mate. And I'll put the link to his channel down below in the comments section. Anyhow, the subject of what it was that started us chatting a little bit was that he did a video, it was a challenge, I think it was called Show Us Your Steak Challenge, and it was hashtag men's mental health. And Gary did this challenge video. Basically he was cooking a steak out in the woods. His channel's all about kind of being out in the woods and wild camping and foraging and stuff like that. So he did this video where he was out in the woods cooking this steak and basically talking about his experience with depression. It's a good video, and he was very, it takes a lot of guts to do that, to be quite open about, your experiences with mental health, because unfortunately there's still quite a bit of stigma about mental health, and really there needn't be. So I told him that I used to be a cognitive behavioural therapist and I worked in mental health for nearly 15 years, so he kind of suggested, well, perhaps you could do a video, so here I am. So anyway, what I just want to talk about quite quickly, I don't want to make this too long, but is what you might expect from cognitive behavioural therapy, because I think a lot of people are very uncertain, unsure and frightened about what it would mean to go and get some therapy. So anyhow, I've just done this little thing here. I don't know, I think I might just change the camera angle. Okay, I hope that's better. You can see this diagram I've drawn out here. But before we just get into that, if you are feeling depressed or anxious, because it's usually quite common that they go together, please do go and see your GP or health professional. Because quite often it might be that a course of medication will resolve the depression, but your GP might recommend talking therapy, and in this case we're talking about CBT or Cognitive Behavioural Therapy, and they can either refer you, or in the case of the service I worked in, IAPT, which stands for Improving Access to Psychological Therapy, people could self-refer into the service. So once you're referred, there'll be an assessment and you'll have some forms to fill in, and common ones are things like what's called the PHQ-9, which is a measure of depression, and there's 9 questions, and one called the GAD-7, again 7 questions, and this is a measure of anxiety and worry. So these are the common ones that you'll have to fill in. There's more what they call disorder specific measures, so things like a measure for social phobia, a measure for OCD, a measure for health anxiety, and so on and so forth, but these are more generic ones, and they just use these to roughly assess the severity of the depression and or the anxiety, and from there they can determine kind of at what level of the service you would best be treated in, because there's different tiers to it, and also how many sessions it's likely to take to resolve the issues. So once you actually get your appointment and you've done your forms and you get into the room, you'll be seen on a one-on-one, usually one-to-one with you and the therapist. And what's really important at the outset is that the therapist tries to get you on board, tries to create what's called a therapeutic alliance, or build a therapeutic relationship, because it's not really going to work if you don't get on with the person and you're unwilling to open up to them. So that's something that has to come from both sides. So once you're in the room, as I say, with the therapist, they usually have a whiteboard or something like that, and they should then start talking around this model. Now I used to fill it in with the person as we were chatting away. So for example, the cognitive just means thoughts, really. It just means what's going on inside our head. So cognitions can be those thoughts that sometimes in depression can be very negative, very self-critical, hopeless, things like that. They can be dreams, they can be memories. Those are all forms of cognitions. The B, the behaviour, is obviously our actions. So cognitive behavioural. So our actions, what we do or what we don't do. So avoidance, if we avoid something, that is in fact an action. It's a behaviour, the act of not, doing something. Then we've got the physical body. That's important. And I put here how you feel or our emotions. Again, very important, even though they're not reflected in this title. But these 4 areas, so thoughts, feelings, the physical body and behaviour, all sort of, they all conspire, as it were, can make us depressed and or anxious. A 5th one, sometimes can be very important, is the environment. So the environment that we can find ourselves in can itself become an influence on our thoughts, feelings, the physical body and behaviour. So for example, somebody a bit like me who has social anxiety, if I was to find myself in a, like a busy environment where somebody asked me to get up and speak, then immediately I would start thinking how awful that would be. My emotions would become, I would be highly anxious, my body would react, and I'd do my best to try and see if I could get out of it. That's just a rough example, yeah? So the therapist will work with you to develop what's called a formulation or a shared understanding of the problem that you're bringing into the room, and then the task thereafter is to see if you can work together to resolve those issues. So once you've got a clear formulation, the therapist should be sharing that with you and say, is that right? Is that what's going on for you just now at the moment? And hopefully you'll have got it right. And then once you've decided what the issue or the issues, because there can be more than one, the therapist might want to negotiate how you prioritise those and set what are called therapeutic goals. So these are the goals that each session you and the therapist are going to work towards achieving, and really there should be some time at the end of each session to check in with how things are going and how you feel you're making progress towards these agreed goals. So it's a very rough and quick guide to CBT, and there's loads more to this obviously, but I just wanted to give a very quick chat about it, about what you might expect. And I suppose the other thing to say is that in order for it to work, to do its job, then you really do need to attend every session. And a very important part of CBT is what they call homework. So your therapist should really sit down with you and agree on homework tasks. So it might be, for example, he or she might ask you to, over a week, to write out your thoughts. So they'll give you a thing called a thought diary, and they'll help you learn how to start identifying what we call negative automatic thoughts, or NATs. So you would write those down on this thought diary, then you would bring it back and then you would talk through them, and then a therapist would start to teach you how to identify more helpful ways of thinking. So I hope that it follows that if you thought differently about an event, then it's going to likely have an impact on how you feel about it. And also it could change the way that you feel in the physical body. And all those then might culminate in making some behavioural changes. So I'll stop it there because I don't want this video going on too long, but if that was helpful, please give me a thumbs up, or if not helpful, a thumbs down, but let me know why. Please let me know if you want any more of this type of stuff, because I know it's primarily my channel's all about sort of gardening really, but I would like to do some other things as well. So let me know if this was interesting, or you'd like to see some more things on this thread. So thanks very much for watching. Take care everyone, and see you in the next one. Bye for now.